Good evening and welcome to tonight's video. This week I will be using this Cosmo Cricut page, and this is going to be my my backing sheet. So I'm taking this frame and I'm cutting it into 3 pieces to rearrange on this page. So I'm not actually going to be using it as a frame. It's just a different way that you can use these, just to give you a different idea. I mean, I purchased this when I first started scrapbooking, and I thought to myself, oh, that'll be easy to do a page on that. And now I can't bring myself just to sort of plonk my scrapbooking designs on top of this without doing something more to it. So I'm cutting it up and I'm now popping it and rearranging it on this page. I took the backing sheet, it's just a page that I didn't particularly like. It's a one-sided scrapbook page from a book, and so I'm just using it as my template for holding this page together, really. So I'm just gluing all of this down, and you'll see that I've arranged it so that the frame is all on the outside. And I'm going to be using this photograph, which is from my family tree. It's an old photograph of a lady by the name of Sarah Taylor. So I've taken my Tim Holtz edging tool and I'm distressing along the edge of this page just to give it a little bit more of a vintage feel because of the photograph. And I'm taking some distress inks, and this is milled lavender, and I'm putting this along the edge but also bringing it up onto the top of the page just in a few different places. I've lifted this up and I'm holding it up so that I'm just lightly putting on it, not putting a lot of pressure, just so that I get a little bit of a shading in some places. Again, just to sort of distress it and give it more of an aged look. The idea is that I've printed out some of a family tree, which on a piece of vellum, which I'm going to be putting here on the page. And I decided that the best way to secure this vellum is a problem to secure because you can see through it. So when you put any glues or tape, you can see them. So I thought if I put some buttons and some twine, I can attach it that way. So I've got a piece of purple twine and I've found myself some buttons, and I'm going to use my pokey tool. But that wasn't going through and I was afraid of damaging the page. So I've just got a little piece of foam. It is just package foam that I had, and I've used that to help make the holes so that I don't damage the paper when I'm making the holes, and I don't damage my table. I've taken some washi tape and I'm putting that on the back of the thread just to secure the end, and I've threaded the button and I'm coming up through the bottom there. And I'm actually going to use the thread so that it makes a frame. So you can see me here, I've punched a couple of holes, or I'm punching a couple of holes. I was struggling with trying to do it with a needle and then forgot that I was supposed to be using the pokey tool. And I threaded it through the button there and thought, actually that won't give me a good look, so I've taken it out of the button and I thread it through the hole so that the string lies flat underneath the button and doesn't go over the top. And I've now stitching through the button. The first button I stitched, I only put one lot of twine through it, and then decided that actually it would look nicer if I put a double thread through. So I've put the double thread through here, and when I get to the other end I will do the double thread on the very first button. So I'm threading here through the button, I'll come up again through the button and thread that through, then I come up through the page but miss the button and come down, so that, as I said, so that the cotton is above the frame but below the button. So this is coming along quite nicely. This is a brilliant way of attaching it. Then you won't see any glue and any sticky tape or anything like that. Again, I was pushing that through the page, not through the button. And I finish off by tying a little knot through that and cut my thread and apply the washi tape as well, just to secure that so that it doesn't move. Now with that firmly secured, I've picked up this die. It is a backing die and a top patterned die. And you pop them together and you make multiple copies of this, which then gives you sort of a fan, which I thought might look quite nice on this page. I took the purple, this very dark purple, and it matches my buttons, and then the effect around the frame on the page has some green butterflies, so I took the green from that and the purple from the buttons, just so that it sits in nicely with my page, the colour scheme of my page. Given that my photograph is only black and white, I haven't got a lot of colours to choose from. I have to pick them from the actual page rather than the picture themselves. So I've cut one of those out, so I just fast forward and I've cut out a few of those. I'm not really sure, I just kept going and thought, okay, I've got enough. In the end I've made more than I need, but this gives you the idea of what I'm going for here. So the first time I'm using my glue with a very thin needle point to stick onto the filigree piece. Now I've got my X-Cuts sticker maker, and I'm putting a couple through the sticker maker. So this is another way you can adhere these to the background. You rub the front of it to get excess glue off, and then you can stick this straight down on the backing sheet. Unfortunately, I always find it leaves a little bit, so I've got a little rubber here that I'm taking off any excess of the glue that's on the paper, just so that it gives a clean effect. So this is another way that you can attach these sorts of fiddly pieces together. I'm not a fan, I'd have to say, of the glue, of the sticker run, sorry. So I'm going back to the glue. But this time, instead of putting it on the top sheet, I'm putting it on the bottom one and just going around the edges. And then I'm going to check to see whether any other pieces, parts need to be glued down, and I'm gluing those down separately. So that just makes it actually a little bit easier and not quite as fiddly. So I keep going. One with a purple background and a green top, or a green background and a purple top. So just keep going with all of those until I've got as many as I think I need, or I've done all of them, whichever comes first, really. So once those are all done, I can arrange them. So I'm just popping these together just to get them down, just to see how many I want to use. I wasn't sure if I was just doing a half circle so that it does look like a fan, or whether I put a few more down, and then whether I put the extras anywhere else on the page. So I am getting a brad. So at the very bottom of this fan, there is actually a hole for a brad to go through, so that you can attach them quite easily together. You can actually make other things, like this looks a bit like a flower, but I do actually want it as a fan. It'll add to the vintage effect of this page and go quite nicely with my picture. So I've decided that I want it there. So I'm popping my hole in so that I can attach the brad down onto the page. Come in through the back of this and just push the brad down. Sometimes I go on and I will add washi tape to the back just to help secure that when I know I'm happy with where it is. And I'm just going to use a little bit of glue and a foam dot there to secure the first and the last one, so that stays in place. So I use tape for the last one and lay it flat, but the very first one I've put on a sticky pad because that is more raised. And just to finish off this, I thought I'd use that excess twine, exactly the same twine that I used for my frame, to create a little bit of a tassel on the end, which will just add a little bit more texture to the page, and it just finished it off quite nicely. And who doesn't love a little tassel on a page? It just just gives a little bit something extra to the page. So now I'm finishing that off there. And I'm quite liking how this is coming out. It's a little bit different. And I decide now that I'm going to do a little bit of packaging technique just to put a little bit of more ink on these top sections because they look a little bit lost, a little bit too plain. So I've gone back in with the milled lavender distress paint, or distress ink I should say, just to add a little bit more colour there. And I'm going to put some paper behind the photograph just for a little bit more pop of colour. And so I'm actually just fussy cutting around the edge. I don't want this to look perfect. I want it to look a little bit rustic. So I'm just sort of fussy cutting it to give a little bit more colour and a little bit more pop to the page and a little bit more height because I'm going to layer one on foam pads and I'm going to stick the other one. So I quite like the green with the purple underneath it. So I put the heavier colour at the bottom and the lighter colour, the green, at the top. So that just gives you a little bit more dimension. Taking those last bits of the fan and thinking, oh, do I want them on the page? I do quite like them, but not just 3. It's an odd number and I don't like that. So I've decided that I'm going to leave those off. And I have found a wood chip title that says Life is Beautiful. This is part of a Dusty Attic chipboard from, I think it was called Mini Captions, and it's the last one from this collection of titles that I had. So I am just cutting that away so that I can glue that on the page. I do actually like it as the chipboard colour, so I'm not going to colour this one up, but I wasn't quite sure whether I wanted the title up in this corner or actually on the family tree. It fits so nicely sat there on the family tree and it fills up that section, and I don't actually mind having a blank area on the page, so I'm going to put that down the bottom and I shall then glue that in place. I've got my husband gently walking around so as not to make a noise on my video, which is why I'm sort of laughing. So I've stuck that down in place now, and the last things I'm going to add is a little bit of sequins for a little bit of glitter and a little bit of glam, because we've all got to have a little bit of glam in our lives. So I am popping a few. I don't like positioning sequins. I always find that I'm forever moving them, and I don't like them here and I don't like them there. So I've kind of just dropped them on the page, and I'm inking the edge of the paper here just again to distress a little bit more, and I use my distressing tool just on the green that the photograph is attached to, but I don't do it on the purple. The purple I wanted to be flat on the page, and I didn't think that it needed to have the distressed ink on it either because of the darkness of the colour. I don't think it would add anything. You wouldn't really see it. So here we go with sticking down the photograph. As I said, I was going to lift up the photograph to give a little bit more dimension, and then glue on the back of the purple to stick it onto my page. And then I just come in to stick down all of the sequins. I have a little pen that has a rubber tip to it to help hold the sequins, so that I can just dab it onto the sequins, dab the glue down onto the page and pop the sequin back on. It then stops me getting covered in glue as well. So I'm popping all those sequins down in place. Just gave the page a little bit of a shake just to see if any sequins were still loose, if I'd missed one or two. And now I'm just coming in with my cat to finish off the page. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you again next week. Thank you. Bye.